Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Mercha Kodesh. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of 2 Kings, the 15th chapter, continuing with the succession of kings, right, of the northern and the southern kingdom. At this point in time, we've already passed the divide, right, of the kingdom, and we're starting to near the end, right, of this kingdom here, starting with the northern kingdom, because they end up getting taken out of their land and deported first. Okay, and so we start to see the beginnings of that as within this chapter. We'll notice the entrance of the Assyrians, and at this point they're starting to expand their territory, their land, their region, right? If we look up here, the Neo Assyrian Empire. Let's see. All right, this is not bad. Yeah, so you can see here with the part that's highlighted in orange, this is the Neo-Assyrian Empire for the most part. And let me see this. This is good. Maybe I use this one here. And so they expand, right? And they continue to expand. And I believe, the Assyrian Empire, both in the light green and in the darker green. And so where we are in 2 Kings, the 15th chapter, we'll start to see as they expand more, particularly under Tiglath-Pileser the third. This expansion is carried out, taking over Syria, right, and then eventually down to Israel, Judah, Egypt, and so on. So this is the book of 2 Kings, chapter 15, verse 1. In the 27th year of Jeroboam, king of Israel, began Azariah, son of Amaziah, king of Judah, to reign. And this Azariah is otherwise known as Uzziah. 16 years old was he when he began to reign, and he reigned 52 years in Jerusalem. So that's 52 years. And his mother's name was Jecholiah of Jerusalem. And he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord Yahweh, according to all that his father Amaziah had done. So Uzziah here, as it says, did what was right, similar to Amaziah, though they didn't, take down the high places. They ended up following like they weren't going off to the extent of the northern kingdom. All right. As it says, save that the high places were not removed, the people sacrificed and burned incense still on the high places. Now, something that's interesting about this is when we go into going back to the prophecy by Josiah, I believe it was Ahijah the prophet, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see, or this might have been the man of God that got slain by a lion. Yeah. So anyway, this going back to Jeroboam, the original, right, that set up those idols and caused the northern kingdom to really fall off heavily into idolatry. We read here in 1 Kings, the 13th chapter, when we went through it, right, that there was a man of God who was sent to Jeroboam, right, to go and speak against him. And he mentioned here, right, in verse 2, it says, and he cried against the altar in the word of the Lord Yahweh, and said, O altar, altar, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, behold, a child shall be born unto the house of David, Josiah by name, and upon thee shall he offer the priests of the high places that burn incense upon thee, and men's bones shall be burnt upon thee. And let's see. Yeah, and then he basically mentions this here. But when we go, as we get to the part of Josiah coming on the scene, you'll notice that there's a lot of things that he does similar to that, and so one thought that came to mind here is interesting because, yeah, I don't remember in particular, but we'll find out when we get there. But I believe he ends up, as he does this purge, right, he ends up having the high places be taken down and so on and so forth. So it's just interesting how it's almost like the Lord had these kings prior to Josiah not take down the high places, though they didn't go off and they walked in the ways that were right before the Lord, but they just didn't do that, until Josiah came on the scene to fulfill that, or to, play that role. Just something that came to mind here. Anyway, continuing verse 4. Actually, I read that. Verse 5. And the Lord Yahweh smote the king so that he was a leper unto the day of his death, and this king being Uzziah, and dwelt in a several house. And we can look up this several house here, but you can imagine that the leprosy he was struck with made it so he couldn't dwell amongst, because in ancient Israel you had a separation between the lepers and everybody else. So, and you can actually look up here, is leprosy, I believe it is, but let's see. Yeah, so yeah, leprosy is contagious, as it says. It is spread through prolonged close contact with an untreated person who has leprosy. The bacteria that causes leprosy, Mycobacterium leprae, is transmitted through respiratory droplets or skin contact. So it's contagious, and it makes sense why the Lord had a separation between the lepers, right, and everybody else. So if you were struck with leprosy, you couldn't dwell amongst the regular folk, like everything. So when Uzziah, even though he was king, when he was struck with this leprosy, it says that he had to dwell in this several house, as you can see the definition here being separateness, right? So he had to dwell in a separate area because of that leprosy that was brought upon him. So continuing on, and when we read in the book of Chronicles, you'll find out in detail why it is that he actually ended up getting hit with leprosy, being that he followed the ways of the Lord, right? It says that he did that which was right. He followed the ways of his father. So why did he get hit or struck with leprosy? And in the book of Chronicles, it'll go into more detail. However, Azariah or Uzziah here, being a Judite, tried to offer incense upon the altar of the Lord, being overzealous, and we know that's not the role, right, of the king to do that. That's for the priests to do, and hence immediately the Lord struck him with leprosy for being overzealous and going off in that sense, and so he had to basically live like that. So Azariah slept with his fathers, and they buried him with his fathers in the city of David, and Jotham, his son, reigned in his stead. In the 38th year of Azariah, king of Judah, did Zechariah, the son of Jeroboam, reign over Israel in Samaria 6 months. All right, so it talks about the king of the southern kingdom, then it gives you a bit of context about the northern kingdom here. Right, so at some point during the reign of Azariah or Uzziah, you had Zechariah, right, the son of Jeroboam. Here, this is Jeroboam II. Now, remember, we read in the previous chapter that the Lord had mercy, right, and had him end up delivering some of the cities out of the hands of the Syrians and Judah, using Jeroboam II here. So his son Zechariah comes and he reigns in Israel for 6 months. Right, verse 9, and he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord Yahweh, as his fathers had done. Okay, so you start to see the trend that a lot of the northern tribe kings really went in the ways of Jeroboam, right? They went in the ways of idolatry. They didn't follow the ways of the Lord. So there were a lot more quote unquote evil or wicked kings of the northern kingdom. As where you did have some in the southern kingdom, don't get it twisted, but there were a lot more that followed the ways of the Lord in the southern kingdom than those of the northern kingdom. So he does evil, right, in the sight of the Lord. He departed not from the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin. And Shallum, the son of Jabesh, conspired against him, and smote him before the people, and slew him, and reigned in his stead. And this being Zechariah that was slain. So you also notice that there's as where in the southern kingdom, you did have some conspiracies here and there. However, it was closer to a dynasty, right? In the sense that it was the line, right? That this king dies, his son reigns, his son reigns, his son reigns. And so that line or that lineage is preserved. And as a matter of fact, the Lord said that he would have it to where there would be a light, you know. Let me see if I can find that precept. See, a light always. Verse 1 Kings 11:36, and unto his son will I give one tribe, that David. So this was I believe this is when the prophet was speaking to Jeroboam, talking about how the kingdom would be rent from Solomon, and a portion will be given to Jeroboam. Now he said, the Lord basically said, I'm gonna save for David's portion one tribe, which was like Judah, though we know it consisted of Benjamin as well. But the point here being, he says that David, my servant, may have a light always before me in Jerusalem, the city which I have chosen me to put my name there. So it's interesting. Well, actually, even if you read 2 Kings 8:19, right? Yet the Lord Yahweh would not destroy Judah for David his servant's sake, as he promised to give him always a light, and to his children. So he would always have somebody to sit on the throne. And so it's interesting that though in the northern kingdom we see cases of an individual, whether it's a captain of the host, or somebody else that slays the king and usurps the throne. So it's not the direct lineage that continues, right? It's another Israelite. You had even an Issacharite, right? I believe it was a Baasha, if I'm not mistaken. But you had different Israelites, different tribes that came on there and usurped the throne. However, when you look at the southern kingdom, it was always that line, that lineage was preserved, right? And so much so because eventually it would lead forth to Yahushua coming from that line. Okay. So anyway, continuing here, verse 11, and the rest of the acts of Zechariah, right, the king, the son of Jeroboam II of the northern kingdom, behold, they are written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel. Now, in the book of Chronicles, right, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, yes, it is a lot of the events are similar, right, in terms of repetition, right? They sort of expound upon the things we read of here in 2nd Kings, but they give a bit more detail. Okay, and that's why there's more chapters in the book of Chronicles. Verse 12, and this was the word of the Lord Yahweh, which he spake unto Jehu, saying, thy sons shall sit on the throne of Israel unto the 4th generation. And so it came to pass. And I believe you had Jehu, and was it Jehoahaz? Let's see. Yeah, you had Jehu, Jehoahaz, Joash, Jeroboam II, and Zechariah. And it was from here. These were the ones, the descendants of Jehu, right? And then we see that Shallum usurps the throne by taking out Zechariah and fulfilling, as we just read here, the word of the Lord that he spake concerning Jehu. Verse 13, and Shallum, the son of Jabesh, began to reign in the 39th year of Uzziah, king of Judah. And this Uzziah is the same Azariah that we read of above. Okay, it's important to make that distinction. So you may say, wait, wasn't the king Azariah? Why is it saying Uzziah? It's the same name, same individual. And he reigned a full month in Samaria. For Menahem, the son of Gadi, went up from Tirzah, and came to Samaria, and smote Shallum, the son of Jabesh, in Samaria, and slew him, and reigned in his stead. So this guy Shallum reigned for a month, and then he got taken out by Menahem. But it's interesting because, going back to the chart over here, you can start to see that it looks as though like Shallum's purpose was to cut off that continuation, was to stop the lineage of Jehu at the fourth generation of sitting on the throne. And then he gets taken out. So now we have Menahem, right, who is now reigning after having slain Shallum. And the rest of the acts of Shallum and his conspiracy, which he made, behold, they are written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel. Then Menahem smote Tifsa and all that were therein, and the coast thereof from Tirzah, because they opened not to him. Therefore he smote it, and all the women therein that were with child he ripped up. So he basically took vengeance upon them. Now let's look up here, Tirzah. I'll actually keep this here, and we can just Tirzah Bible map. Once again, these are all really approximations at best, for the most part, especially when it comes to like the specifics of like certain cities or areas. When it comes to regions, because they're so large, it's easier to pinpoint a particular region, right? But when it comes to specific cities, it'd be hard to identify those, especially going back to the ancient world. So anyway, they placed Tirzah somewhere around here, but we can see it's within the territory near Samaria and so on. So the inhabitants didn't want to allow Menahem in. So when he got the opportunity, he went up there, took it over, and pretty much did a lot of harm over there. You can imagine the ripped up, similar to what Antiochus, did with the women, right? Which refused to follow his ways, going into the book of Maccabees. In the 39th year of Azariah, king of Judah, began Menahem, the son of Gadi, to reign over Israel, and reigned 10 years in Samaria. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord Yahweh. He departed not all his days from the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin. And Pul, the king of Assyria, came against the land. And Menahem gave Pul 1,000 talents of silver, that his hand might be with him to confirm the kingdom in his hand. So at this point, this Pul here is, when you look this up, they'll tell you that it's the Babylonian name of Tiglath-Pileser III, this guy. And he was an Assyrian king. And so when we go here, around his time, right there, Assyria, the Neo-Assyrian Empire, is expanding, it's expanding, it's expanding, and eventually it gets around here. And that's where Menahem decides to basically pay tribute to the Assyrian king in order to have his a confirmation, as it says, right? To have, one, he wouldn't be deposed, he wouldn't be taken off the throne, but two, if anything, he would have the backup or the support to say like, okay, this regional superpower has confirmed me as king. They recognize me as king because I gave them this amount of money, and so I'm good. And the worst comes to worst, I can, go back to them and be like, hey, like there's some trouble going on here, and I need your help or something of that sort. But anyway, at this point, right, I'm going to take a quick pause and just pull up a bit of information here about, in the secular, about Tiglath-Pileser or Pileser III. Now, they say, some sources say he was a usurper, some say that, he was off the royal line. Doesn't really matter. We're mostly concerned about what he ended up doing in reference to how it affects Israel. And you can read a lot more about him, about the rise to the throne and so on and so forth. But like I said, the focus here will be mainly on these two paragraphs. So it says, Tiglath-Pileser marched on the Levant Pileser marched on the Levant for the 5th time in 734. Now, 734, if we just look up, and I'm sure it's going to be approximation too, but anyway, if we look up Menahem, We'll see king of the northern kingdom here, and they have his reign from 752 to 742, right? Keeping in mind that in the BC era, right, time moves forward as it goes down. So when you go from 52 down, you're actually moving forward in time. And so somewhere within the reign of Menahem is where we have Tiglath-Pileser's fifth campaign, if you want to put it, in the Levant, reaching as far south as the border of Egypt. Going back to this image here, you can see at this point they have taken over, right? They have taken over Egypt. And that's why this is the light green, which shows the Assyrian Empire around 671, right? So we're dealing with a little prior to that point. This campaign resulted in the conquest of Gaza and the submission of numerous states, effectively bringing the entire Levant under direct or indirect Assyrian rule. And the Levant is mainly this region here. Okay, so this is now under Assyrian rule. Assyria and Egypt shared a border for the first time in history. Ascaluna, Judah, Edom, Moab, and Ammon, and the Muna Arab tribe all began paying tribute to Tiglath-Pileser. By extending his control throughout the Levant, Tiglath-Pileser formed a semicircle of control around Israel and around Damascus and cut them off from Egypt, which had at times offered support to the Levantine states. So by basically building this, this control and being the sort of like intercepting between Egypt's access to Israel, now he's basically cut that off. And with having control, the reason this area later came to be known as Coal Syria was like a hotcake is because a lot of this region is desert or mountain range and so on. That's why you don't see really much cities and stuff going on around here. So a lot of the travel or movement of goods would go through the Levant or through Israel. Whether you're going from Damascus down to Egypt or up north or anywhere, right? From Asia Minor, where they had a lot of goods over there as well, coming down south, unless you were trying to go by water, which would be more expensive, because if you look at an entourage going by land, it can be a really long train, right? Camels and all that. But if you want to go by ship, you need multiple ships. That's going to cost you money. It's going to cost you more to try and get goods overseas down here than if you were to go on land. So that's why this was very crucial. All right, i.e. trade routes that were sort of established here. And King Solomon capitalized off of that, which also helped in making Israel very rich. So having control of this region was very crucial. And the Assyrians at this point had now done that. We were reading over here. So, where are we? The Assyrian efforts resulted in Aram Damascus becoming both geopolitically isolated and without a large enough food supply to feed its people. Now, one thing about Egypt is they had a large grain supply. So much so that when we go into the future, right, as the Romans come into the picture, you'll see that a lot of the tension, the back and forth that was during the Syrian wars between the Seleucids and the Ptolemies was over this region here. Now, when Antiochus, I believe this was Epiphanes at this point, tried to step over, right, and get up in here to gain that control of Egypt, they sent to Rome. And they said, hey, this guy is trying to take us over. And Rome, that's when Rome sent that general, right, Laenus, Gaius Laenus Popilius, if I remember his name correctly. And he came in and stopped Antiochus there, because they said, we will not have our supply of grain from Egypt affected because of you. So Egypt definitely was able to, they had they had the Nile River right there. So when it came to like agriculture and, products. They were pretty rich in that as well. And that's why when you read in the Old Testament, during the famines, they mainly came down where? To Egypt. Because when you go back to the time of the Exodus, remember that a part of what the Lord told Israel while they were in the wilderness was that I'm taking you to a land where your survival is dependent upon me. The reason being, where you are, you don't have, similar to Egypt, how they have the Nile River here, and it's easy to build irrigation systems and be able to really get that rich soil and grow those crops and have surplus that you can use to weather famines and so on. You don't have that over here. Your water supply over here is going to come from rain, right? The former and the latter. And that rain is going to be by me. And you're basically living on a hill, right? Hill country over here. And then you go down to the coast, which is the border of the Mediterranean over here. But if I don't send you water, rain, and there's a drought or things get hard, you're screwed. That's why you would often hear the Lord will send famine as one of the main plagues of Egypt or of Israel. And that's because it was very easy to do that, because they didn't have some like readily accessible body of water here. If you try to go to the Dead Sea, you're not going to grow any crops using water from there. It's called the Dead Sea for a reason. The salt levels in that water were way too high to sustain life. So we were pretty much at the mercy of the Lord. All right. Anyway, going back to what we're reading here. In 733, Tiglath-Pileser resolved to cement his conquest. In this year, he again campaigned against Aram Damascus, still the strongest remaining native state in the region, which was supported by the Assyrian tributaries Tyre and Ascaluna, as well as Israel. In 732, Damascus fell, and Tiglath-Pileser annexed the lands of Aram Damascus. Now, it's not fully clear if this was around the same time where I believe it was Ahaz ended up hiring or getting help from the Assyrians against the Syrians. But in any case, that also happens, which we'll read about soon, possibly in the next chapter or so. In the same conflict, Tiglath-Pileser also captured Tyre and defeated Israel, which he divided in half. Now, this ends up coming after where we're reading of here. And this goes into that the deportation of the Israelites from their lands. Continuing here, annexing and the northern portion of the kingdom as the province Megiddo, and subjugating the southern portion as a vassal kingdom. The weakened and enormous reduction in size of Israel was seen by the Israelites as vindicating predictions of impending doom, which really would be prophecies, made by the prophet Amos a few decades prior. And when we get to the book of Amos, we'll address that. So, going back and continuing in 2 Kings 15, you had Menahem, and when Tiglath-Pileser came, he paid him off so that he would be able to retain power in the region. And Menahem exacted the money, because it was 1,000 talents of silver. That's a lot of money. And so in order to get that money, guess what? He took it from Israel. So he exacted the money, as it says here, of Israel, even of all the mighty men of wealth, of each man 50 shekels of silver, to give to the king of Assyria. So the king of Assyria turned back and stayed not there in the land. And the rest of the acts of Menahem and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel? And Menahem slept with his fathers, and Pekahiah his son reigned in his stead. So now we are here at this point. You had Menahem. So at this point, still Uzziah is still in power. So Menahem reigns, and then his son Pekahiah now comes up into power. In the 50th year of Azariah, king of Judah, Pekahiah the son of Menahem began to reign over Israel in Samaria, and reigned 2 years. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord Yahweh. He departed not from the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin. But Pekah, the son of Remaliah, a captain of his, so a captain of, and it was usually the captains here, man, but a captain of Pekahiah, called Pekah, conspired against him and smote him in Samaria, in the palace of the king's house, which Argob and Ariah, with Argob and Ariah, so these were the conspirators, and with him 50 men of the Gileadites, and he killed him and reigned in his room. And so when we take a look here, we'll see getting to the end of the reign of Uzziah, Pekah basically assassinates or takes out Pekahiah, and then he comes and reigns. And the rest of the acts of Pekahiah and all that he did, behold, they are written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel. In the 52nd year of Azariah, king of Judah, Pekah, the son of Remaliah, began to reign over Israel in Samaria, and reigned 20 years. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord Yahweh. He departed not from the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin. In the days of Pekah, king of Israel, came Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria. So now he's referred to as Tiglath-Pileser. Back then he was referred to as Pul. And took Ijon, and Abel Beth Maachah, and Janoah, and Kedesh, and Hazor, and Gilead, and Galilee, and all the land of Naphtali, and carried them captive to Assyria. So, and that's what we sort of read about, how he came and took some portions here. Now, this event in which Tiglath-Pileser ends up coming and taking over these regions. These are regions of Israel. Galilee, right? Gilead, Naphtali, like these are regions of Israel. And so Tiglath-Pileser comes and takes these regions here. And as it says, he carries them captive to Israel. So he ends up taking them from their lands and moves them over to captive to Assyria, not to Israel. And when we go here, I'm just going to pull this up real quick. Into the book of Tobit, we'll see that I think even in the first chapter here, Tobit makes reference to that because he happened to be one of the captives that was taken by the Assyrians. So we'll just read this portion real quick. This is Tobit chapter 1 verse 1, the book of the word. So now you get a sense of around what time period did Tobit live. Okay, and that would be right around this time of in 2 Kings, right around the time of Pekah, and Tiglath-Pileser the third, and so on. So that puts him right around what 7 to 730s or so BC. So it says here, the book of the words of Tobit, the son of Tobiel, the son of Ananiel, the son of Aduel, the son of Gabiel, of the seed of Asael, of the tribe of Naphtali, who in the time of Enemessar, now keep in mind, right, the names are slightly different here in the Apocrypha as they are in the Masoretic texts or the regular scriptures. So it says, who in the time of Enemessar, king of the Assyrians, was led captive out of Tishbe, which is the right city, or the right hand of that city, which is called properly Naphtali, in Galilee above Asher. And as we read of here, you can see Galilee was one of the regions and all the land of Naphtali. And so that included where Tobit was dwelling. So this confirms that, right? And let me see. It says here, I, Tobit, have walked all the days of my life in the ways of truth and justice, and I did many alms deeds to my brethren and my nation who came with me to Nineveh into the land of the Assyrians. And when I was in mine own country, in the land of Israel, being but young, all the tribe of Naphtali my father fell from the house of Jerusalem, which was chosen out of all the tribes of Israel, that all the tribes should sacrifice there, where the temple of the habitation of the Most High was consecrated and built for all ages. And then you go on and continue, and he basically talks about how he was one of those who, though he was of the northern kingdom, he would actually make the trip down to the southern kingdom, and he would come to the temple, and he would come there and keep the holy days, bring his offerings and so on and so forth. And so not going to really go into all those details. You can read that on your own time. But the point that I wanted to get here was relating and sort of tying in that contemporary being Tobit to the time or the period that we're reading of here in the book of 2 Kings, the 15th chapter. Verse 30. And Hoshea, the son of Elah, made a conspiracy against Pekah, the son of Remaliah. And we see here that Hoshea is now the last king of the northern kingdom before they all get carried into captivity. Remember, in verse 29, Tiglath-Pileser does not take all of them captive. He took a portion of them, right, out of the land captive, which I think we read over here, right, as he annexed the northern portion here. Okay, and so Hoshea, the son of Elah, made a conspiracy against Pekah, the son of Remaliah, and smote him, and slew him, and reigned in his stead in the 20th year of Jotham, the son of Uzziah. And if we go back to the chart, we'll see here that at this point in time, let's see. Okay, I guess over here he didn't really link it too well, right? But in any case, as we're reading here, Jotham being the son of Uzziah, he's reigning. During the time of his reign, this is when this happens. And the rest of the acts of Pekah and all that he did, behold, they are written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel. In the second year of Pekah, the son of Remaliah, king of Israel, began Jotham, son of Uzziah, king of Judah, to reign. 25 years old was he when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Jerusha, the daughter of Zadok. And he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord Yahweh. He did according to all that his father Uzziah had done. Howbeit the high places were not removed, the people sacrificed and burnt incense still in the high places. He built the higher gate of the house of the Lord Yahweh. So he did all these things, but the high places, the groves, the different altars that the people worshipped upon in the land, they weren't taken down. Now the rest of the acts of Jotham and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? In those days, the Lord Yahweh began to send against Judah Rezin, the king of Syria, and Pekah, the son of Remaliah. And if we go back up here, yes, we read about Hoshea, right? I think he came up here and see if that's, yeah, we read about Hoshea. That was a mention of what ended up happening, right? But here when it says in those days, and now it's given an account to say around this time, right? So now it goes back a bit to the time of Pekah, right? And Rezin, and then it's going to give us an account of some of the things that happened around then. Right, so in those days, the Lord Yahweh began to send against Judah Rezin, the king of Syria, and Pekah, the son of Remaliah. And Jotham slept with his fathers and was buried with his fathers in the city of David his father, and Ahaz his son reigned in his stead. And that brings us, and around this time, right, we would start to see, if not already, Isaiah, somewhere around this time coming on the scene, because we know that Isaiah ends up having an interaction with Ahaz, right? Let's see, I think that's even concerning the prophecy. Is it Isaiah 7? Yep. And it came to pass in the days of Ahaz, the son of Jotham, the son of Uzziah, king of Judah, that Rezin, the king of Syria, and Pekah, the son of Remaliah, king of Israel, went up toward Jerusalem to war against it, but could not prevail against it. See, so even you're starting to see, right? Even in the book of Isaiah, because he was there around this time, there's an account here in the book of Isaiah of what we're reading of in 2 Kings 15th chapter, because he was there, right? Anyway, so when we get to these different books, you'll start to see the connection. Oh, he's talking about the same event. Okay, that's because they were contemporaries around that time. So that brings us to the end of the book of 2 Kings, the 15th chapter. And Lord willing, this is edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha, Kodash. Until next time, Shalom.